Well, hello there and welcome back to the Hull City Fan Central YouTube channel, where today I'll be giving you my prediction for the Championship table come the end of the season. So right now we are a few days before the first game of the season does get played in the Championship, and I thought I'd make a little prediction on where I think everyone will finish in the table. But first I want to go over all the fixtures for the first game week of the Championship, just so you know what's going to happen this weekend ahead of the season and what you may think about putting in your predictions. So let me know down in the comments as well at the end of the video what you think your prediction will be for the Championship, where you think different teams will finish and stuff like that. But let's go on to Game Week 1's fixtures. So for the first game week, we do have a 4-day thriller, if you want to call it that. So on Friday, so just a few days' time, we do have Huddersfield Town at home against Burnley, 8 p.m. That one will be live on Sky Sports if you do want to watch that one. Then moving on to Saturday, the 30th, we do have a whole batch of games. Blackburn versus QPR, Blackpool versus Reading, Cardiff versus Norwich, Hull City versus Bristol City. I'll be live at that game giving you a matchday vlog on this YouTube channel. Luton Town versus Birmingham, Millwall versus Stoke, Rotherham versus Swansea City, Wigan Athletic versus Preston North End, and Middlesbrough versus West Brom. That'll be 5:30, that's late kickoff, also on Sky Sports. Moving on to Sunday the 31st, we do have Sunderland versus Coventry City at 12 p.m, again live on Sky Sports. And then to close off the 4-day thriller, as I'm calling it, Watford versus Sheffield United, which should be a very, very juicy game, 8 p.m, live on Sky Sports once again. So that's a nice batch of opening fixtures for the weekend, especially with some of them fixtures there, especially that Watford-Sheffield United game, very, very juicy. So let's go on to my official predictions for the table. Okay, so starting off at the bottom of the table in 24th, I do have Rotherham. Although they are newly promoted, they did a good campaign last season. I don't think they have quite what it takes to take on the Championship just yet. They've made a few signings. One important one, Tom Eaves, who said that he's going to bag 30 goals for Rotherham, and nobody believes him. Because Rotherham, they had a week end to the season, they've had a weak transfer window and also a weak pre-season. And I feel that they're going to finish rock bottom. Nothing too miserable by that, but I do think they are going to finish dead last. Now, I do have Bristol City finishing in 23rd, which may surprise some of you. But just seeing how they sort of ended last season, especially with that sort of drop down for the first half of the season, they were spending a bit of it touching top half of the table, and then they kind of plummeted down towards the end of last season, and I don't think they've had that brilliant of a transfer window. No massive names getting brought in, and they've actually let go of a few of their key players that were vital to them sort of getting points last season. So with that, it's a very shock one. I know this may be controversial, but I do think that Bristol City will be finishing 23rd. Now in 22nd, I do have another club last season that was struggling, Reading. I do think they're going to finish 22nd, although they didn't go testing the waters of relegation that much last season. I'm telling a lie. Of course they were. They were testing the waters. If it wasn't for Derby County, they would have been relegated. So we've got to make sure that that is taken into account, and I have done that. Reading, I think, will finish 22nd. Relegation for them. I just don't think what's happening at the moment at Reading will keep them up, unfortunately. And yeah, unfortunately they'll be going down to League One, in my opinion. Now I do think Wigan will just escape relegation in 21st. They had a strong season last season, obviously winning League One, and then the kind of a rocky finish, especially their last 6 games. I think they only managed to pull away with 1 win. So, very, very rocky. Transfer window-wise, not done too much. More brought in sort of bench filler, if you want to call it that. They do also have an ex-Hull City player, Josh McGuinness, yeah, who... I want to call him an ex-Hull City player, but then also he was never a Hull City player because Hull City players have got to score goals and have got to play football, whereas he can't actually play football. He just likes to standoff side for majority of the game. So yes, I do think Wigan will be finishing 21st with Josh McGuinness. Now in 20th, I do have another kind of surprise team, QPR. Although they've had a somewhat okay season last season, I do think that they've kind of had a slow decline in previous seasons. They've slowly been tipping off. Nobody's really been noticing it, and I think this will be the season where they do finish quite low down in the table, and it will be a season where they'll be looking back on themselves thinking, right, we need to change this up, ready for the next season. But I do think they'll finishing 20th this season. Now another team that I'm thinking will finish around the same position where they finished last season is Birmingham in 19th. They did have a very, very rocky season last season, similar to Hull City, but I do think that they've not done enough in the transfer window. I don't think they're going to do enough throughout the season. I think they'll do enough to stay up and stay in 19th, but that's as much as they're going to get. So I do think Birmingham City will finish in 19th. Okay, so in 18th, I do have the first Welsh club, that is Cardiff City. So similar to Birmingham, I don't think they've done enough coming off the performance of last season. Don't think they've done enough in the pre-season. Don't think they've done enough in the transfer window. And I feel that just the overall lacking thereof will force them into 18th this season. Similar to Birmingham, I feel that they'll both have similar seasons. So yeah, Cardiff in 18th. 17th, I do think that the third League One side, Sunderland, will finish there. Although they had an ish season last season. Of course, they got promoted, so it's nothing to be taken away from. They didn't have the best season they could possibly have as League One players. But Sunderland are back in the Championship, first time in a few seasons, and I do think they're going to finish it strong, and I do think they're going to finish just in that bottom half of the table, but nothing to be shied away from. So yeah, Sunderland 17th. So moving up the table now into 16th, I do think we're going to finish with Stoke there. Although they've sort of been a mid-table club in the Championship for quite a few seasons now, I don't think that they've brought in enough to contend with the teams in the Championship that there is. It's going to be a high-intense Championship league this season, and I don't think Stoke are ready for that. I don't think they've really been put into that. They're sort of like, oh, we'll keep the squad we've had last season, they'll do just as good of a job, if not better. When I don't think so, especially with the high calibre of playing this season with some of the teams in the league. So yeah, Stoke in 16th. Moving up now into West Brom, a team that had a very switch season last season. So the first half of the season, they was pushing for promotion, and then it kind of dropped off in the second half of the season. They did get a few good results in there, but yeah, it wasn't that much, and I feel that they'll be riding that wave of the negativity through into the season. So yeah, do you think West Brom will finish in 15th? Okay, so in 14th, I do have the second and last Welsh club, Swansea, doing a little bit better than their country rivals in the Championship, but I don't think it's quite good enough to push for top half of the table and push for promotion. Swansea City, yeah, they had a bit of a rough time last season, especially with a few of the later end of the season results. So I feel that they're not going to manage to be able to push for that top half quite yet. They've brought in a few good calibre players in the transfer window, but nothing to test that top half of the table yet. So yeah, Swansea in 14th. In 13th, I do have PNE, or Preston North End, as some of you may know them. Preston, they're a bit of a tricky team. They sometimes have brilliant seasons and sometimes have poor seasons. And I think we're going to have a bit of a mash season there. I think they're going to start the season really, really well and then drop off in that second half, which will see them balancing out in 13th on the table. A little bit similar to West Brom last season, finishing around that mid-table mark. Then in 12th, I do have a team that will drop a bit further off than what they were last season. Blackpool, they had a phenomenal season last season after getting a nice juicy promotion the season before. But yeah, I think they'll have a rocky season throughout. Finishing 12th, it's nothing to be understated by, especially for a team like Blackpool. But I don't think they've got quite the air about them yet to push for that top half, push for the top six. I feel that they'll have a very subtle and sort of flat-levelled season and finish in 12th. Moving into 11th now, we do have our first Premier League club. And it may be a shock to some of you to see Watford this far down the table, but let me tell you why. Watford, they've released quite a few of their good high calibre players to other Premier League sides, to other sides across the across Europe, across the world. And I don't think that they've brought in that enough good quality talent to push them back up to the Premier League on first time asking. They had a very, very rough season last season, second only to Norwich, obviously. But I don't think that they've got that air to lift them back up. You'll have to see where I put the other two Premier League clubs later on in the video. But I don't think that Watford have got enough to push them back up into that top six. So unfortunately, we will be seeing Watford staying in the Championship another season. And I think they'll finish 11th. So nothing to be disgusted by. Moving into that top 10 spot. So in 10th, we'll think we'll have Blackburn. Yes, they had a very, very good season last season. But I feel that that's just a one-season wonder. You know, everything can change season to season in this Championship. We've seen it with teams before that have been fighting for relegation the other season and then going on to win the league the next. It's a very, very toss-and-turn season. Very, very toss-and-turn league. And I feel that Blackburn will just miss out on that top six, nicking into 10th. So yeah, nothing to be too disheartened by, but obviously Blackburn, a team like that, a team with players like that, they'll be trying to push for that top six, especially because quite a lot of their squad is ageing on now. They're needing to get out of the Championship as soon as possible. But 10th it is for them in my eyes. And in 9th, we do have another club that has a Hull City player, or an ex-Hull City player, I should say, in Millwall. They picked up George Honeyman in the transfer window, and I do think they're going to finish 9th. George Honeyman definitely running the boat there, as much as I'd love to say that he's a brilliant player. He is now playing for Millwall, and yeah, it's Millwall. So 9th, I do think they'll finish. They've had an alright transfer window. I'm not saying that just because they brought in George Honeyman. They brought in a few other good quality, hard-working players like that. But I do think that they'll just miss out on that top six, finishing in 9th. Nothing to be too disheartened about. Obviously, Millwall should be pushing for that top six, trying to get them back into the Premier League. But yeah, 9th it is for Millwall. Testing the top of the table now is 8th for Coventry City. Yes, it is a bit of a shocker, that Coventry City. Last season they had a surprisingly good season. Contrary to not getting promotion or anything like that. They had a very, very good season. I was impressed by their performances at when they was playing Hull City, and also when I was just watching some of the Championship games on TV. I was very surprised with Coventry. They were sort of like caught me by surprise last season. But I don't think they're going to have quite that air about them this season. So I put them to finish in 8th. I think that's a respectable thing for the club. Not linking back to last season, but linking to the club as a whole. So let's move on to who I think will be in 7th. So in 7th, just missing out on promotion, or the top 6 promotion playoffs, I do have Luton. Yes, Luton Town, they played playoffs last season. They didn't do too well in them. Can't say that's quite Matt Ingram's fault. Obviously, they did have Matt Ingram on an emergency loan for the goalkeeper last season. But I don't think it was quite Matt Ingram's fault why they lost. And in such a style, they went out in the playoffs in such a style. So yeah, Luton, I think they're going to just miss out on that top slots. Obviously, after having a surprise season last season, talking about Coventry having a surprise season, Luton were the biggest shock factor. Coming up from League One, not even winning League One the season before, but coming up from promotion and then just blasting through the league. I believe that they won loads of games. They did win loads of games because they came in the top 6 and just missed out on that playoffs. But I do think they just missed out on the top 6 this season. Okay, so in 6th now I do have Hull City, my team. So yes, Hull City, I think that they've had an excellent transfer window, bringing in some players that people I've been speaking to have gone like, nah, you're never going to get them. You're never going to get them. But we've got players like that, and it's amazing, the transfer window that we've had, especially for a club like us that finished 19th last season. We was fighting relegation for the majority of the season. So yeah, I do think we're going to finish top 6, and I'll put us in 6th. You just have to wait until the end of the video to see who I think will win the playoffs, but you may be able to guess beforehand. Moving on to 5th now, we do have Huddersfield. Yes, another Yorkshire club in the playoffs. There's a little bit of hesitancy in me putting Huddersfield above Hull. Obviously there is a bit of a Yorkshire derby rivalry there. But yeah, I do think Huddersfield are a very, very strong team. They've got some air about them that I feel shows maturity yet youthfulness in the players. And they've got experience there, but it doesn't show in like the playing. They play very youthful but very experienced, and it's some good quality football. I wouldn't mind seeing them back in the Premier League. I put them in playoffs. I put them just above Hull. But yeah, I think they'll finish 5th this season. In 4th, I do have the 3rd Yorkshire club in a row, Sheffield United. Now, this pains me even more to say that I do think Sheffield United will finish above Hull City. But yeah, I do think they're going to finish in 4th. They had a very strong season last season. There was fighting for all the draws, especially that 0-0 draw against us, which was actually quite a good game. Yeah, so I do think Sheffield United will finish in 4th. They've had an okay pre-season transfer window, but I think they'll be riding that wave of last season into this season. Obviously, they didn't get knocked out in the playoffs last season, but yeah, I do think they'll get in the playoffs this season in 4th. The team that I think will just miss out on automatics coming in 3rd is Middlesbrough. Yes, a lot of people have been tipping Middlesbrough to win the league or come 2nd to that effect. But I don't think they'll quite do it. I think they'll have a fantastic season, but come in that 3rd slot. So yeah, a bit of a miserable one for Middlesbrough, But yeah, I do think Middlesbrough will finish in 3rd. They've got a very, very strong squad about them. I feel they've got the similar air about them as Huddersfield, but Middlesbrough have got that little step further. They've got a little bit more maturity in them. And yeah, I think that they'll just tip it over the edge into 3rd, but not quite into the automatics. If you can't guess by the video, yes, the 2 automatic promotion slots will be going to 2 Premier League clubs. Obviously, they've got parachute payments. They've had an okay transfer window for both teams, but it all comes down to this. So in 2nd, I do think it will be Norwich. Yes. So I do think Norwich will finish in 2nd, although many people believe that Norwich will win the league and Fulham will come dead last, and they'll do that toss and turn like they do every season. No, I think that Burnley have got a bit of extra about them, but I'll talk about them in a second. Norwich in 2nd, it's a very, very tricky one. They've got some world-class players like Timo Pukki, who many are rumouring for top scorer again. But I don't think that they've got that air about them in the defence. They've got some good defenders, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that defensive line is strong enough this season for what's in the Championship. There's a lot of good attacking forces in the Championship this season, and I don't think Norwich are there ready to combat it, especially coming off the abysmal season they had last season in the Premier League. Obviously, it's a different league, it's a different competition, but I just don't think they're ready for it defensively. And yes, I do think Burnley will win the league. Obviously, with Vincent Kompany as manager, he did get brought in for Sean Dyche, who went just before their relegation last season. But yeah, Burnley, they were fighting to the end for relegation. It was fighting between Leeds, so they would have loved to see Leeds get relegated. But yeah, Burnley, I do think they're going to win the league. They've got that bit of air about them that I feel Norwich are lacking. They've got it there. They've still got a strong Premier League squad. They've got a squad that can probably contend for fighting for relegation in the Premier League, which I don't feel a lot of Championship clubs have at the moment, especially with Vincent Kompany, who's got a lot of experience in English football, spent a lot of time at Manchester City. I do think that Burnley will win the league. Some of these things I may regret to say, especially when it comes to the end of the season, but I'll have a reaction video at that time. Okay, so one final thing to predict, and that's who I think will win the playoffs. In my opinion, Hull City will win the playoffs. Of course, I was going to say this. I can't say anything else. I've put them in 6th. I think they're going to win the playoffs. We've had a good streak in playoffs. We've never lost any playoffs in our history of the Championship. We've won both of them with a nice, comfortable 1-goal win at Wembley as well in both of them. So could we see the treble look at Wembley? Who knows? But you'll just have to wait to see what happens in the season. So make sure you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel, because I'll have more Championship, more Hull City content. As we come into this first game week, I'll have a matchday vlog live from the game. So make sure you like and subscribe for all of that. But this has been the Hull City Fan Central YouTube channel. Goodbye.